How much of a mess is this when I go walk in here?
Don't go that way.
Okay, all right.
It's a triple homicide in a relatively quiet area of the county. Things like this just don't happen in Chiliota.
When you enter a scene like that with several bodies, family members, it's heartbreaking.
Tell me what happened. I don't know what happened.
He became infatuated with this lady from Bulgaria. Silviya would charge money through a social platform for her to do dances, things, whatever.
If you can please, pretty please, send me one of your videos.
I'm gonna pray for you, brother. Nobody loves you anymore or any less.
It's either a really incredible acting job or he didn't do it.
New trial out of Florida. The People versus Grant Amato. He faces the potential of the death penalty.
And when his parents found out about his, quote, relationship with Silviya and the tremendous amounts of money that he was spending on her, they contacted her, and that effectively ended his relationship with Silviya. That's what this case is about.
The evidence will show that there is a complete lack of physical evidence linking Mr. Amato to these deaths.
I mean, this case had everything. It had sex, drugs, it was just missing the rock and roll.
Oh, poor baby. I'm so sorry.
Your wife is in a bar. You said she's unresponsive?
This is what he's gonna tell you. How to get out of that situation.
And I grabbed the gun.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
You want to say anything? We, the jury, and to find the defendant.
It's a part of Florida called Orlando North, Seminole County. Backcountry beauty, small towns, and worlds away from all the nearby theme parks.
Really typifies Central Florida.
It's where Margaret and Chad Amato settled and raised their 3 boys.
Margaret Amato loved horses. She fostered a former racehorse that had been abused.
Spent a lot of time helping other kids in the neighborhood, introducing them to horses.
Chad Amato was a really big Florida Gator football fan.
He loved to take his sons to the games. His oldest son, Jason, married and moved out. The 2 younger boys, Cody and Grant, were inseparable.
Cody was only a little bit older than Grant, so they were on the same weightlifting team in high school. They played paintball together. They gamed together, they watched anime together. They really did everything together.
Grant was in awe of his older brother Cody and joined him studying to become licensed nurse anesthetists.
His life was centered around his family, dreams of going to Japan, which he and Cody actually did. And they both lived at home with their parents. And up until July of 2018, he had the perfect American life.
Then, tragedy struck the Amato family.
We gotta go around back this way.
How much of a mess is this when I go walk in here?
Don't go that way.
Okay, all right, give us 5 minutes.
Deputies responding to a violent scene while doing a well-being check at a home in Chiliota.
A triple homicide.
Deputies have been surrounding this house for hours, collecting evidence surrounding a murder investigation.
When you enter a scene like that with several bodies, family members, obviously it's heartbreaking.
The case was assigned to Seminole County Homicide Detective Eva Marie Motari and her partner, Danny Anderson.
Why do we have 3 family members deceased, and who did this? The mother, I observed, she was at her desk, so you could tell that she was working. The father was in the kitchen. It appeared he had just come home based on he had his lunch bag near him. And then the brother was in the doorway coming in from the garage as if he was coming home from somewhere.
At first, the crime made no sense to the detectives or to local reporters, including Michael Williams, who covered the case for the Orlando Sentinel.
It's a triple homicide in a relatively quiet area of the county. Things like this just don't happen in Chiliota.
And detectives found it strange that the scene almost appeared to have been staged. A pistol next to the dead brother, Cody. A gun in a holster on the father's body that seemed to be backwards for a right-handed person.
There was no evidence of forced entry, Nothing appeared to be taken from the home.
But one brother living at home was missing, Grant Amato.
So then our investigation led us to find him and see what was going on.
Detectives discovered him checked in at a nearby motel.
Our thought process was, why is Grant not at the home and at a hotel?
You're being cooperative, sir. We appreciate that. Some Seminole County detectives want to talk to you, so we're going to get the handcuffs off of you.
No weapons, no evidence of blood, and the handcuffs were taken off Grant.
We spoke with him, and he was willing to come with us voluntarily to the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. My partner, Danny Anderson, transported him there, and that's when he and I began interviewing him.
Hi, I'm Eva.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm here.
He seemed an unlikely suspect.
Here's a person whose mom and dad had just been executed, and his brother, who couldn't have been closer to anyone in the planet, was executed.
But it soon emerged that Grant and his father, Chad, had argued the night of the murder.
He had threatened me that if I stepped foot back on his property, not the house, but if I stepped foot back on his property, that he would kill me. And
He said those specific words.
Yes.
So you're afraid of him?
Oh yeah.
You are actually afraid that he could kill you?
Yeah, and it's also because, like, in the past, like 2 weeks before I got kicked out, my dad was going through like a lot of episodes where he was losing his temper a lot, yelling a lot, especially when me and Cody weren't at the house. And
who's he yelling at?
My mom.
So was he being violent to your mom?
Yeah, like I think
physically or just emotionally?
Both.
Put his hands on her.
He had bruised her left arm by grabbing it. And then apparently she had said that on one of the nights that they were in the kitchen together, and then he was like throwing food at her and then banged her head against the wall a couple times.
Grant revealing that life was not so perfect in the Amato family. Had Grant tried to protect his mother? Otherwise, detectives wondered, why would he do anything to harm her or harm his brother Cody, his soulmate?
Your father wanted you out of the home. So, did you guys get into a fight and an accident happened? Is this something that, could have been prevented?
Now's the time. Now is the time.
So what do you think happened?
To be honest.
I think that there was something that obviously happened at the house.
Tell me what happened.
I don't know what happened.
I know better. Listen to me. I know better. I can help you, Grant, with honesty. I can help you with honesty.
I was kind of like pulling teeth to get out of him what he really thought happened in the home.
We think something else happened before you left the home, that you're either afraid of or embarrassed to talk about. But we need to know exactly what happened because, like Danny said, we can place you there at certain times. And so we need to know what happened before you left that house because you didn't leave with everything being okay.
I honestly, I don't have anything else that I can really say. I mean, I don't know.
He wasn't buying any of it. He denied it all. He said once he left the home, he never came back. I read people very well, and I was not sitting comfortable with his answers.
This is the time to come to Jesus, to be honest, because you know more. I'm looking in your eyes tell me exactly that you are hurting inside. I get it. Brother, I get it. You're hurting.
And this is the only time we can help you.
Grant Amato was in fact hiding something, and detectives were about to find out what that was. The woman Grant Amato was in love with.
My full name is Grant Tiernan Amato.
It did not take long for detectives to learn what Grant Amato had been hiding from them.
The turning point in Grant's life was when he was accused of stealing medicine from the hospital job that he worked at. Ultimately, he was terminated. He lost his job and he started spending most of his time at home. He got into gaming on the computer system. He was really like a computer guru. And then he got onto the internet and started watching pornography.
Hello.
And he became infatuated with this lady from Bulgaria. Her name was Silviya. And Silviya would charge money through a social platform for her to do dances, things, whatever.
In the interrogation, Grant was hesitant to admit it when detectives asked him what he had been doing since he lost his job.
Well, what I was doing is, over the past 4 months or something like that, I've been talking to this woman online.
Who's she?
She's, as embarrassing as it is, she's a cam model.
A what?
A cam model. Do
All right.
either of you guys know what that
Nope.
is?
They soon found out he had become hooked on a thriving internet sex site located in the Eastern European country of Bulgaria. Operators there make big money catering to lonely American men with the lure of women like Silvi.
He sort of got deeper and deeper into this relationship. So what he did was he started lavishing her with gifts, sending her lingerie, sending her sex toys, and she would model the lingerie for him.
You know, it wasn't really my intention to continue talking to this woman, but it just kind of happened. And then because there was like that emotional connection, I guess you could say, between her and me, like I like, you know, it felt like a relationship, you know.
Yeah, oh, he was very talkative about her. He loved her, and you know, we tried to even explain to him that, you know, is this a real relationship? She lives in Bulgaria, you're here, but he believed it. He really did.
The longer you kept with this one person, the more you could pay and the more sexually explicit it would get. And it was getting to a point where he was spending, you know, $1,000 to $2,000 a day just to watch her, you know, do certain things on the video. And he couldn't help himself.
All right, Silvia, look at me. I am outside going to check the mail. And I'm asking you if you can please, pretty please, send me one of your videos. I love it so much when you just send them to me. Yeah, I don't like buying your stuff. It makes me feel weird. Could you please send me one, though?
Okay. So how much do you think you spent on this?
Probably close to like $200,000, I'd say.
$200,000?
Yeah.
And where'd the money come from?
Money came from me, my brother, and then my dad.
He went through all of his money, then eventually he started getting money from Cody, and then he started stealing his parents' money.
He ran up huge bills on his family's credit cards, forging their signatures, and even took out a fake line of credit on his parents' mortgage.
In fact, his dad, Chad, remortgaged his house and just took it as a loss. And he was getting close to retirement. It all came to a crashing end there.
So after his father, his mother, and his brother discovered the theft, they sort of gave Grant an ultimatum. He either has to go to a behavioral health care clinic, he needs to stop speaking with Silvi.
Grant's parents sent him to a private South Florida mental health clinic for what was supposed to be a 2-month program to help deal with his obsession and diagnosed depression.
One thing that they never did do was they never reported the thefts to the police. They did everything they could to help him. When it was discovered that Grant was also stealing money from his aunt, his grandmother, and some of his cousins, his brother Cody actually offered to pay off the debts. So they really just wanted to protect him.
But when Grant abruptly left the clinic after fewer than 2 weeks, his father and mother brought him to this restaurant and laid out a set of rules to follow if he wanted to live at home.
Among the rules, Grant was to get a job. He was to stop spending all of his time online. He was to never talk to Silvi again. And he was to apologize to his family.
But Grant's obsession with Silvi was too much, and he called her again after persuading his mother to let him use her phone, to the fury of his father.
Oh, poor baby. I'm so sorry.
You know, I didn't want to just stop cold turkey on it. So he had apparently found out, and then
Unhappy.
Right, and one of the stipulations was that he told me at the dinner was, if you speak to this woman again, you're out of the house. I'm kicking you out. You can pack up your shit, and then you're off my property. And then because of the way that he used to be, he had told me that basically if that happens, that if I ever step back onto his property, that he would kill me.
That was the day before the murders, and he kicked him out of the house.
But Grant was sticking with a story that once he left the house, he had no idea what had happened to his family, other than seeing something on the news.
He never asked us, are my parents and my brother okay? And to me, that's just, like, that would be my first question. Is my family okay? Those words never left his mouth until we produced it to him.
But at one point, Grant suggested that maybe his brother Cody had shot his father and then himself.
So if anything happened in the home, to bring law enforcement there, what would you think happened?
That there was a shooting.
Between whom?
I don't know. Between Cody and my dad.
And why would you think that?
To protect me, or to help me, or to do something with me.
Detective Motari had been playing the role of the good cop, but it wasn't working.
So what is it you need to tell us that we're missing?
Step over.
I mean, the only thing that I know is just that, I left the house later than what I had said.
I'm one to be the rapport builder and the kinder, gentler to try and, I've got a lot of confessions that way. So it bothered me that I couldn't get to him that way. Then me and Danny switched roles.
Did you leave the house with your brother Cody looking like that? Or did you leave the house with your father looking like that? Or your mother? Is that how you left your family?
No.
Nobody else went into that house.
Who left your family like this? If you were the one that's been depressed, you were the one that owes money, you were the one that got into a confrontation with your father, who did this to your family? If you were trying to defend yourself or something else happened, we need to know now to help you. So tell us what happened, Grant.
If Grant Amato killed his family, he had done so without leaving behind any evidence.
There was just no physical evidence that actually matched Grant Amato to this crime scene. They just didn't find anything.
When they arrested Grant at the hotel, he was in his scrubs. No blood. They searched his car. Nothing. No blood whatsoever. And if you look at the crime scene, all the blood that was there, it's just incredible that someone could have done all this and not got any bit of evidence on them.
But that didn't stop the two detectives from telling Amato falsely that they had all sorts of evidence against him.
The video, if you're sitting there saying no, and video shows something else, guess what? Big problem.
And then telling him they had fingerprints and bullet casings, even though the murder weapon was never found.
We have cartridge cases, we have projectiles.
And fingerprints.
So you just need to tell us what led up to this.
But Grant Amato was unmoved.
There was nothing else more than what I had said.
Then who do you think did this?
I don't know. I don't have the answer.
I'll give you a few minutes to think about this.
The false claims about video and fingerprints, the crime scene photos, none of that was working.
He was very cold and withdrawn. I did not see any emotion.
All the different techniques that law enforcement's taught to try to get a confession in an interrogation were utilized, but it just didn't go anywhere.
So detectives had one last card to play. They brought in Grant's older brother, Jason, who lived out of town with his own family and had been ruled out as a suspect.
We figured maybe Jason would be able to talk with him. Not something that we do all the time, but after 8-9 hour interview and we knew we were not getting anywhere with him, we figured maybe Jason could come in and, get to him, being brothers.
All right, so I take it you know what happened. I I'm going to ask you plain out. You are not part of it anyway.
No.
We just said go in and be yourself and be his brother.
I want to believe you, Grant, but you're the last person that I could put in that house. And I know what happened over the last 6 months. I can understand the troubles that you've gone through, but it's hard for me to think that you would break to this point. But who else can I blame? How are we going to find out who did this?
I don't know. I don't have the answers.
Well, Jason was just incredibly upset, understandably, and he tried to talk to Grant, and he tried to elicit a confession from him too.
I love you more than anything in this world, just like I loved Cody, Grant, and Dad. I know Dad was in I know Cody was in but they were our family, and they would have never done anything to hurt us. The you did, you could have been in jail. You would have been in jail for years.
I know.
And they covered it up for you. I don't believe you. And I probably will have resentment for the rest of my life, whether you did it or you didn't do it, but I need closure. I need to know what happened to my mother, my father, and my brother Cody. Because I wasn't there to help. And that hurts me. That hurts me a lot, man.
Jason was heartbroken. He lost his family, but yet his brother's sitting here who's being looked at for these crimes.
Even if you did, it's going to be so hard for me to figure out what to do with you. You do not deserve jail. But I can't come to have attorney press charges for you to be killed. Grant, I need you to be honest with me, man. I need to have closure.
And Grant just said, I don't know. And he couldn't get him. Jason tried to get him to admit that he did it, but he didn't.
You already made the decision on whether or not they can live or not. That's not your job. All right, I'm ready. I do love you, though. Just remember that. Just like Mom, Cody, and Dad loved you. Nobody loved you any more or any less.
At the end of the meeting with his brother, they hugged each other and said, I love you. And Grant said, I love you too, brother. And he says, well, we have to move on. But it was just very strange, very strange.
I'm going to pray for you, brother. Because I can't pray for Mom, Dad, and Cody anymore.
But still, no confession.
I just believe he was not going to break no matter what we did, who went in there to speak with him. He literally just had no affect whatsoever and believed his lies.
And detectives had no choice but to let Grant Amato walk out of the police station a free man. But over the next 24 hours, as they looked into the story he had spun and where he had gone, nothing added up.
Right after the deaths of his parents and brother, prosecutors said that he went to a supermarket parking lot and immediately got onto the phone, immediately logged into this chat room and started spending money on Silviya again.
If he had been cut off by his family, where did he get the $599 he spent that night as he logged on to Silviya's webcam site?
That was around 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning. Again, just bizarre behavior.
2 days later, detectives showed up at the hotel where he was being watched.
You are under arrest with 3 counts of first-degree premeditated murder.
So opening statements are expected to begin today in a new trial out of Florida, the People versus Grant Amato, and he faces the potential of the death penalty.
I mean, this case had everything. It had sex, drugs, it was just missing the rock and roll.
State, do you wish to make an opening statement at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
First of all, let me wish everyone good morning.
Prosecutor Stuart Stone began with the graphic crime scene photos.
What the defendant did in this case is he staged a murder-suicide scene.
The prosecutor told the jury Grant Amato not only killed his family, but then took the time to make it appear that his beloved brother Cody was the one who did it.
What he did was he placed a handgun near Cody's body and 4 shell casings in the vicinity of each body to correspond to the number of wounds. But the bullets that were recovered that killed the victims were not fired from that gun.
And the prosecutor said a holster with a gun on it, found on his father Chad's right hip, was also clearly planted.
To make it appear that there was some kind of confrontation between Cody and Chad that required Chad to arm himself. The holstered gun was placed on Chad's hip, backward, for a right-handed shooter.
And then another grisly piece of evidence, that Grant Amato had used his dead father's finger to gain access to his father's phone and bank account through the fingerprint opening device on the father's phone.
His USA bank account app was accessed to add an account for funds transfer. The account that was added for funds transfer was the defendant's PNC bank checking account.
And finally, the jury was told about Silviya, the Bulgarian webcam sex pot.
And when his parents found out about his, quote, relationship with Silviya and the tremendous amounts of money that he was spending on her, they contacted her, and that effectively ended his relationship with Silviya. And to Grant Amato, that was the end of the world. There was nothing to live for, and he was furious with his family for ending his world. That's what this case is about. It's about his blind obsession with this woman, the end of the world as he believed it to be because of his family, and his absolute contempt for those that he held responsible. That's what this case is about. Thank you.
For the defense, Grant Amato's lawyers knew they were up against overwhelming circumstantial evidence.
It was a hard-fought trial throughout the whole thing.
So in his opening, Jared Shapiro focused instead on what the prosecution did not have.
The evidence will show that there is a complete lack of physical evidence linking Mr. Amato to these deaths.
The fact that there was no physical evidence was a huge plus for us.
No murder weapon was ever found, and even though Grant, with his brother and friends, often went to shooting ranges, his lawyer said Grant had sold off all of his weapons.
The evidence will show that Mr. Amato sold these firearms in order to continue being able to afford to remain in contact with Silviya.
And finally, the motive.
I mean, there was tension with the dad, that's for sure. But with his brother and his mother, he was very close with them. I mean, there really wasn't any motive to kill them.
Therefore, after all of the evidence is shown in this case, we will request you all to return a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
Central to the prosecution's case was the 8-hour interrogation of Grant Amato, conducted by detectives Eva Marie Motari and Danny Anderson.
Investigator Anderson, come forward, raise your right hand, be ready to be sworn, please.
Detective Anderson described the session, including the part of the tape where Grant Amato is shown the photos of his dead family and appears to be crying.
Was he crying? No, I believe it to be a feigned cry.
And the detective said that over the long hours of the interrogation, Grant never once denied killing his family, what the prosecution would call a tacit admission.
He's not denying. He said there's nothing else he can say, which to me is different than I did not do it.
But defense lawyer Jeff Dowdy was ready to bore down on cross-examination.
I really attacked some of the witnesses in the trial,
challenging Detective Anderson for lying to Grant Amato during the interrogation.
You could tell him that you know where he was because of his cell phone?
In some cases, yes, sir.
Okay, but that wasn't the truth, was it?
Not completely, no, sir.
Just a strategy, because he didn't have a cell phone on. You also told him that there was surveillance that shows no one else came to that house.
Yes, sir, I told him that.
Okay. And of course, we all know that's not true.
Again, a tactic to elicit a response from you, yes, sir.
Right.
And then a series of questions about the use of Grant's brother Jason in the interrogation.
And you're hoping that he might elicit something or say something that would incriminate him?
Yes, sir.
But why, instead of zeroing in on Jason as a suspect, was all the focus on Grant?
So we did narrow in on him. His story makes no sense. His explanation is impossible. And he just continues to lie about the most mundane things.
Including Grant's version of going to the Publix grocery store right after the murder and how he got the money to contact Silvy.
So everything that this whole case is around is this money and this Bulgarian cam girl. So Dad gives you, he's giving you the ultimatum, you're out of the house and I'm going to kill you if you set foot on my property again. But during the course of the search warrant of his room, we find Dad's credit card. Why would, in our minds, why would Dad give him a credit card to use if he's kicking you out of the house for the rest of your life?
But Anderson wasn't through yet. Under Florida law, jurors can pose questions themselves, read by the judge, and a number of them seem to think Jason could be the killer.
You didn't find the conversation between Jason and Grant strange, like Jason was setting him up? Has Jason's financials been gone through?
We've looked at everybody involved in this investigation. I didn't take it as Jason setting his brother up. We can account for Jason's time during the time of the deaths of his family. To go backwards and forwards, we can account for his times.
And another question from a juror, again about the failure to pursue Jason.
Question is, why was person of interest Jason not brought in for a chat like Grant? Both would have been a person of interest.
We could verify his locations, and none of them were anywhere near the Chuliota Sultan Circle area.
But the questions from the judge and the jury gave the defense team hope they had raised reasonable doubts. And now they had to decide whether to put Grant Amato on the stand to testify as their last witness.
And what I told the judge, I said, at this point, we intend to call Mr. Amato to the stand.
He was very stoic throughout the entire trial, with two exceptions. The first was when the bodies of his family members were displayed in the courtroom. He was crying. And the second is when a picture of Silvy was displayed on the courtroom. But you could just see his head just transfixed on the pictures of Silvy.
And throughout the trial, Grant Amato had told his lawyers he wanted to testify as the final witness, so they had to talk him out of it.
Well, I was afraid that he would slip up, say something wrong.
Besides, they told their client, the jury had already seen him on the interrogation video with an emotional reaction when shown the crime scene photos.
Who left your family like this?
It's either a really incredible acting job or he didn't do it. Why subject yourself to cross-examination at that point when you've already told your story to the jury through a video?
Ultimately, I made the decision around midnight, not put him on the stand.
So the defense rested.
The attorneys will now present their final arguments. Is state ready to proceed?
And for prosecutor Dominic Leo, it was all about Silvy.
Good morning. And so how do I show that his obsession with her was such that he'd be willing to murder his family? I don't have to show that at all. You know why? Because when I showed those pictures of Silvy on the projector up there, I know some of you looked at him. And I know what you saw, because I saw the same thing. He was transfixed on those pictures. Tunnel vision on her.
But for his closing, defense lawyer Jeff Dowdy made not one single mention of Silvy. Instead, his focus was on the lack of any physical evidence.
How in the world was Grant Amato able to do all these things without getting a scintilla of blood on himself? Nothing was found, no DNA or anything. The state has the burden of proving Grant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. I submit to you, they did not meet that burden.
The jury was out for most of the day.
When you get to the 8-10 hour stage, somebody's talking. I was cautiously optimistic.
I'm told that the jury has reached a verdict and everyone's present at this point. If you could please stand, Mr. Amato.
Verdict, count 1, Margaret Amato. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Verdict, count 2, Chad Amato. Guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Verdict, count 3, Cody Amato. Guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Say we all signed foreperson dated July 31st, 2019.
Now, the stage was set for the state to seek the death penalty for Grant Amato.
Every one of the findings that they needed to make to sentence him to death, they found. They found every one of those.
And a new team of defense lawyers took over, with the odds stacked against them.
I think the cold, calculated matter of the murder was definitely the biggest hurdle to overcome.
I just felt like that we were walking towards death. I felt like that this jury was going to sentence him to death unless they were given something significant.
And the defense hoped that would come from Grant's brother Jason, who was in the courtroom throughout much of the trial.
The rest of the Amato family were very, very angry, and they wouldn't talk to me. They wouldn't meet with me. And so, Jason was the only game in town. He was the only person from the Amato family that took the stand.
But he was called by the prosecution.
Good morning, Mr. Amato. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Stone.
With the prosecutor using Jason's testimony to show the impact of the murders of his parents and brother.
There are so many memories, stories, and special times that I will never forget. However, I will never be able to make new ones. One of the biggest things I miss is being able to talk to my mom. It's been 208 days. Sorry. I really miss her voice. Though they are gone, I want everyone to know Chad, Margaret, and Cody were amazing people that will live forever. That's it.
Thank you. You may step down.
But Grant's lawyer, Jeffrey Luco, surprised the court, saying he had a question for Jason.
Mr. Amato, Jason, I am going to need you just for one thing.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I
All right.
just need him to take the stand just briefly.
All right. Mr. Amato, come back. Have a seat. You're still under oath, sir.
And for the defense now, it all depended on what was about to happen.
I broke the golden rule. You never ask a question that you don't know the answer to. Despite everything that's happened and all the loss that you've suffered and everything, do you love your brother, Grant Amato?
Yes.
I have no other questions.
Would that one-word answer, yes, his brother still loved him, would that be enough for the jury to spare Grant Amato's life?
There was an audible sigh of relief as I was walking back to the table when he gave me that answer.
Members of the jury, attorneys will present their final arguments. Each side will have equal time. The state will go first and then the defense. Mr. Stone, you may proceed.
Well, thank you very much.
And Prosecutor Stone wasted no time in reminding the jurors of what he said was a cold and calculated, premeditated murder.
And when you're confronted with the reality that it is indeed hard to vote for the death penalty, please think of the overwhelming, mind-boggling enormity of what this defendant did. Just think about that. I say this respectfully. Every single one of you said that you can vote for the death penalty in the appropriate case. If there was ever an appropriate case, this is the one. Thank you.
Now, Jeffrey Lukal, in his closing argument to the jury, needed to paint Grant as an ordinary guy who fell victim to an obsession, Silvi.
An addiction, something that consumed him, something that caused him to kill his family.
And he ended with a clip of the interrogation video, again focusing on what Jason had to say about loving his brother Grant.
I do love you, though. Just remember that. Just like Mom, Cody, and Dad loved you. Nobody loved you any more or any less.
I ask you to consider the 98% of Grant Amato's life where he was a good person, a good boy, a good son, a good brother. I believe everything that's been presented here screams out for a life sentence. I ask you to return one. Thank you.
Under Florida law, the jury had to find the arguments for the death penalty, the aggravating factors, outweighed those against, the mitigating factors, and by a unanimous vote.
Jury verdict as to death penalty. Having unanimously found that at least one aggravating factor has been established beyond a reasonable doubt, Section A, and the aggravating factor or factors outweigh the mitigating circumstances, Section D.
It did not look good for Grant Amato.
We, the jury, unanimously find that Grant Amato should be sentenced to death. No. Signed, foreperson, dated August 12, 2018 in Seminole County, Florida.
No death penalty. A surprise and a relief.
I considered it a huge victory.
His life had been spared, but Grant Amato showed only the slightest reaction.
I've never been around a defendant with such a lack of emotion when so much is on the line and it's your life. I mean, there was no breakdown crying, there was no turning and hugging me because we saved his life or anything like that. It was just standing there, straight-faced, no emotion.
Nor was there any reaction from far away in Sofia, Bulgaria, and the woman who Grant was apparently willing to kill for. Grant's lawyers had tried to get in touch with Sylvie, if that was her real name, but there was no response. Once the money from Grant stopped, that was the end of the relationship.
Poor baby, I'm so sorry.
This guy had the all-American life. Everything was fine. And in 12 months, we're standing before a jury arguing to save his life. It's just terrible the way it ended up. He will die in prison.